I'm going to show you something today that has never been seen before that will give you a much clearer picture of the Toronto condo market. This is a follow-up video to the last video I did that broke down the inventory levels based on number of bedrooms for the city of Toronto. And there was a really great comment on that video that said, can you do this again, but do it by square footage? So the reason why you've never seen this before is because I made this chart myself. I got my hands dirty, and a few hours later, I came out with some pretty interesting information. That's what we're going to discuss in today's video. My name's Tom Story. Thank you so much for being back on this video. If you learned anything new today, make sure to like this video, get subscribed to the channel. And if you want to book a call with myself and my team, you can do that in the first link in the description. Okay, so what we're going through today is I have taken all the active condo listings as of today, me filming this video. I'll give you all the data. We're going to show you it, and then we're going to get to the chart. And I've broken it down by square footage size. So the way that our MLS system works is the smallest category is 0 square feet to 499 square feet. And then kind of goes up by hundreds until 1,000 square feet. I'll show you all the information. And what we're looking at is the active listings as of right now, the sales that have happened that gives us the months of inventory, but then it shows you what section of the market is selling and what section of the market is having a really hard time finding a buyer. Okay, let's walk through this together. So again, quick housekeeping. Just the city of Toronto, 416 area code. We're just looking at condo apartments, not townhouses. And the date range that I have used for the properties that have sold was April 27th to May 28th. The reason why I'm not using an exact month is because I can't rely on the real estate board, because when they put out numbers, they don't break it down by number of bedrooms or square footage. So I had to run these numbers myself. This video will come out a few days after I film, but that is the 30-day period in which I am looking at to create my own months of inventory information, just so you know exactly where the information came from. As of me recording this, there is currently over 7,000 active condo listings in the city of Toronto. And in the last 30 days, 836 of them have sold. And that would put the inventory level over 8. So that is a high months of inventory. But then we're going to break it down even more. So I looked at all those active listings and I thought to myself, how many of those had been on the market less than 30 days? And it is basically half, well, just over more than half of them. So 3,555 of these listings have been on the market 30 days or less. There is definitely a large portion of these that were on the market before at other prices that were canceled and relisted. So it doesn't mean they're brand new to the market. They're just brand new, maybe at a slightly lower price. Between 31 days and 59 days on market, had 1,700 active listings. And then listings that have been on the market over 60 days, which is 1,800. And that's very clear, by the way. If you've been sitting over 60 days and you haven't sold, you have a pricing issue. Like at the end of the day, that's what it is. So you can almost say guaranteed 1,800 of the active listings of what's for sale for Toronto condos right now are overpriced. Not based on my opinion, but based on the fact that the current group of buyers are not responding to their price and they are not buying them. And of that 7,000 number that I gave you earlier, 268 of them right now are sold conditional. But sold conditional means nothing until it becomes a firm sale. So they've agreed on price, but there's still conditions with those properties. So it's not like there's like 1,000 or 1,500 sold conditional. There's just a small percentage that are sold conditional. So it wouldn't really have changed the numbers that much. So now we're going to break it down based on square footage. Okay, as of me recording this, condos available for sale under 500 square feet, 611 of them. There was then 48 sales in the last 30 days. You have over 12 months of inventory. This is a section of the market, as we discussed in the last video when we were talking about junior one beds and one bedroom condos. The numbers are still very clear. It's very similar to the last video that I put out. 5 to 599, you have 1,100 active listings and 125 sales, and 6 to 699, where you're getting more into that like reasonable size 1+10 layouts with parking spaces. Those are property types that a lot of people are buying. I know the inventory levels are higher, but they're doing okay right now. So 1,300 active listings divided by 159 sales gives you 8.7 months of inventory. So that is the smallest size condos we have for sale. You can see those inventory levels are relatively high. Let's continue to build here. 700 to 800 square feet, 1,022 active listings and 105 sales in the last 30 days. So 9.7 months of inventory. Why is it that units that are 700 to 800 square feet have more inventory on the market in terms of absorption, at least, versus the 6 to 699. And I think one of the reasons why is a lot of 2 bedrooms are being built under 800 square feet these days. So I think that is going into that section as well. And because they're at a higher price point, that might be affecting things. Then you've got 8 to 899 and then 9 to 999, both fairly similar numbers, still buyer's market territory. But as I discussed in the last video as well, they're in a place where they are over the threshold of buyer's market, but not in the like really big drop in price category. Really just the sub 400 square foot units, and a part of the 5 to 599 square foot units are in that like price drop category in a potentially significant way. Something to keep in mind with months of inventory is that this is what I'm showing you right now is just the last 30 days. If it changes and next month half of this inventory is gone, which it won't be, then things can change. The inventory levels need to remain in these levels over 6 months of inventory for an extended period of time for you to actually see real pressure on prices. Okay, now let's jump up to the bigger units, 1,000 to 1,200 square feet. 687 active listings, 100 sales, 6.87 months of inventory. So you can see the inventory levels dropping down. That seems to be, for the condo market, the sweet spot, if you can call it that, where things are moving. It's not great. Prices aren't going to go up, but things are selling. 12 to 1,400 square feet, 7 months of inventory. 14 to 1,600 square feet, 9 months of inventory. As we get up here in larger units, there is less of them. And when there's less of them, there is just naturally less sales. So we're working with less data points. And that's why some of these numbers I would kind of take with a grain of salt, because they can change pretty quickly on a month-to-month basis. But let's talk about the big ones. 1,600 to 1,800 square feet, 4.9 months of inventory. It's like, that's a balanced market. 1,800 to 2,000 square feet, 4.1 months of inventory. But I'll say the same thing I said with the last one. There's not a ton of data we're working with, like 100 listings and 67 listings, but we're not talking about 1,000 listings like some of the other square footage ranges, right? And then 2,000 square feet plus, again, it says 10 months of inventory because that's what's happened the past 30 days. But there are lots of high-end luxury stuff that doesn't trade on market, that I don't have access to the information, and we're not dealing with a ton. But let's break this all down and show you what is actually happening. This is the chart that prompted this entire video. So let's take a look. This is summarizing everything we just talked about. And on the bottom here, you have the square footage range in terms of how large these units are. And on the side here, you've got the months of inventory. So you can see under 500 square feet has 12.7 months of inventory. 5 to 599 square feet, 8.8 months of inventory. And as you go across here, this red line, 6 months of inventory, is where most people that track the market would agree a buyer's market actually starts, where there could be downward pressure on pricing. Is kind of interesting that these larger units are not experiencing the same inventory levels as some of the smaller ones. Kind of makes sense, because that's the downsizer buying that. That's probably buying cash and is less impacted. And there's just less of these larger units anyways. And by the way, over 2,000 square feet, that goes up to 5,000 square feet and bigger than that. So it's a huge category, but with not that many active listings. There was like 140 active listings that fell into those categories anyways. And then the numbers here, these percentages you're seeing, that's showing you that based on this level of inventory, if this remains for the next 6 months, maybe it will, maybe it won't, it's showing you that these properties, 10.3% of units that are between 700 and 800 square feet will likely successfully sell, will find a buyer in the next 30 days. And I need to remind people when we're talking about the percentage of properties selling is that a pretty good overall market would be like 3 months of inventory. That's hovering between a seller's market and a balanced market. Even in what we would call a decent market, only 33% of properties would find a buyer every 30 days. So just to put that in perspective, I get that these numbers are low and the overall numbers aren't great, but it's not like it's 12 and it's normally 70, right? It's like a good market is 30. A really hot market would be 50% of properties are trading every month. That would mean that you have 2 months of inventory. There's one more thing I want to show you in this video, because I already know someone's typing a comment and you might have to delete it now because I just haven't gotten here yet. And what I'm going to show you now is for the 2-bedroom categories, because as we learned in our last video, they're the section of the condo market that is doing the best. You know, you could argue best of the worst because not much is happening across, but the 2-beds are kind of holding their own. Well, what are the 2-beds? So I actually dug a little bit deeper, and I'm going to show you based on the 2 bedrooms and 2+ dens that are currently for sale and that have sold so far in 2025. Here's what those numbers are showing us. So right now, as of recording this, there is 3,452 listings on the market, condo apartments in the city of Toronto that fall into the category of a 2-bedroom or a 2+ den. They make up collectively the largest percentage of properties for sale. Even though the smaller stuff gets all the media headlines, the 2-beds are really the biggest percentage of the condo market. And this is what's actually going on. So the blue line here, we've got the square footage at the bottom again. This is only tracking 2 bedrooms and 2+ den units that are actively for sale versus what has sold so far in 2025. So the actively for sale is the blue bar, and then the cream colored bar is what has sold so far in 2025. Now, you might be saying, Tom, why didn't you show us just what's for sale versus what's sold in the last 30 days? Because I would have liked to do that, and I could have done that, but then I couldn't have gone back every month. And the reason why is that active listings is a massive reason of how we calculate the months of inventory. I don't know how to go back. And if you're a real estate agent that knows this on the Toronto system, please tell me. But I don't know how to go back 60 days and see how many listings were active, because how would you ever know that? The Toronto Real Estate Board will release active listings and new listings at the end of every month, but they don't break it down based on square footage or number of bedrooms. They're only breaking it down based on area and property type. So the blue bar is what's on the market right now. And then the cream bar is what has successfully sold number of transactions so far in all of 2025. And this kind of tells you what you need to know about the market anyways, because this is the best part of the condo market, is that there's more for sale than what's sold this entire year. And that kind of puts things in perspective. But if you look at like, where's the biggest gap in terms of what's available versus what's sold so far this year, it's 700 to 799 square feet. And then you look at like, well, what's sold the most this year? Well, it's 1,000 to 1,200 square feet. And you can see kind of how it goes across. And something that's interesting to me is, you know, over here, we almost forgot about these guys, is there is actually 2 bedrooms that have sold and are on the market currently that are under 500 square feet. I don't know how that is possible, but they exist. And many 2 bedrooms that are under 600 square feet on the market versus what's sold. So there's been 19 2-bedroom condos in the city of Toronto that have sold under 500 square feet so far in 2025. So this is how it's split up in terms of the 2 bedrooms, what is for sale based on square footage, and what has sold so far in 2025. I hope you found that valuable. We also have to remember that it is not one size fits all for the Toronto condo market. Although these graphs are really good and they tell you a story, right? Every individual property is different. It's like maybe you're listing a 2-bedroom condo or a 1-bedroom condo, but there's nothing else available in your building right now, and you're the only one on the market. Maybe there's 15 others you're competing with. Maybe you have a great view and a really good floor plan versus the other one that's for sale or sold recently, had a really long hallway as they walked in and don't have a parking spot. So there is a ton of nuance to this, and that's where professionals, real estate agents that really know what they are doing, can break that down and help buyers and sellers make decisions in today's market. Thank you so much for watching. My name's Tom Story, and remember, home is where your story begins.